Hello, this is Sonny Jimenez with TexasRealtyPros.com. Today I will be talking about information about broker services and the buyer's representation agreement. Those are two forms that you will actually use and see when you walk into any realtor's office. They're very common forms, but a lot of people do not know how to read them, and it's just a few pages that you have to look over, but I'm going to show you and go over so you won't be so scared when you're looking at the paper, when you're looking at these contracts. So this is a piece of software called Zip Forms that realtors use, and we're going to select Association, All Library, Search, and Information. And information about broker services here. Here we go here. Oops. Just a little bit bigger, huh? That'll help. Oh no. Come on, be nice. There we go. Okay, information about broker services basically tells you how does the representation work, who gets paid and how they are paid. You should know that the duties of a broker depend on whom the broker represents. Now this is very important because a lot of times when a client will call the phone number on outside the house or property that's for sale, they immediately think that the realtor represents them, but that is not correct. The realtor is in a contract to have fiduciary responsibility to look after his client, and in that case is the seller. So his obligation is to get as much money for the client as possible, the seller, to look after his best interests, and to make sure the transaction goes smoothly for the seller. Now, there's a little bit more information here. We're going to go buyer. If the broker represents the owner, if the broker represents the buyer, he's basically looking after your best interests. Okay. Now, if you choose to have an intermediary just basically means that the realtor acts as basically a mediator between between the seller and the buyer, not really expressing any opinions or anything like that, just basically telling you, relaying messages. But in that case, how many times could that actually happen? I mean, you're going to tell me that the realtor's not going to have an opinion? It's a very sticky situation where they can get very litigious. So you have to you got to be careful when they're working on both sides. I always recommend you just get you a realtor. It's going to be free to you, because see, when they act the intermediary, that realtor's going to collect 6% of the commission. That's usually the standard. Okay, so not in all cases, but it's a standard. They're going to get a full commission, no split. So if it's 4%, they'll get the whole 4 instead of 2 and 2. Anywho, say yeah, just go ahead and get your realtor. It's free to you as a buyer. The seller's paying for it, and they'll look after your best interest and negotiate for you and get all the contracts. There is a whole lot to contracts that a lot of people overlook and just not aware of. The small things can actually cost you a bundle. I mean, just in the title policy alone, it could run you anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000, depending on the type of property and how expensive the property is. So make sure you get somebody who knows what they're doing. So now that we talked about information about broker services, let's go ahead and go make sure if you choose to have a representative broker you're gonna rent. If you choose to have a realtor represent you, they'll give you a representation agreement. Basically saying, hey, we're tied together. I'm gonna work for you. Me and you are stuck. You can't just jump board and go to another realtor. So let's go ahead and pull that up now. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this little guy a mouse. All right. So now we got this form up. This is this very standard form by Texas Association of Realtors. You'll see this if you walk into any realtor's office, or if you meet with a realtor and they ask you to sign a buyer's tenant representation agreement. Now, the buyer's rep is very important for the realtor, so he really wants you to get this signed so that he can start really working for you. If you do not have an agreement with a realtor, You could just say, hey, I don't want to work with this realtor, and jump to another realtor, which is, it's perfect. It's your right. You know, you're not comfortable with the realtor, you don't think he knows what he's doing, then yeah, I would definitely jump to another realtor. Basically it's saying, okay, you're the client, you're gonna put all your information there, you put the broker's information there, that you're basically buying a property. The term is that it begins on this day, it ends on this day. All this is standard, blah blah. He represents you, gives you the best possible representation as possible, looking after your best interests. And this is an agreement between you and him. And if you want intermediary, you can ask to have it checked or unchecked. We're talking about intermediary already, where he represents both sides of the transaction, representing both buyer and seller, which I really don't recommend. I would say no intermediary status. Let's see here. Competing clients, blah. This is all standard. Confidential. Yeah, he's not going to give you information. Now, this is a little tricky. I'm going to show you one thing here. If we go. Now, the parties agree that the broker receive a commission calculated as follows: 3% of the gross. It's usually 3% standard of the gross sales price if client agrees to purchase property in the market area. If client agrees to lease property, blah blah blah, 1 month's rent. That's if you're doing a lease. Now here goes a little trick. This is all standard stuff here. Construction, if you do the construction. Protection period. The protection period is, okay, let's say that you have an agreement with him and it starts and it ends on January 1st. If he put on there a 30-day protection period, well, that means that after the contract ends and he has 30 more days for you to wait, 30 more days before you can buy a property that he showed you. So if you want to go see 1111 Main Street with this realtor, when he was representing you, then he would jot that information down that, hey, we looked at this property. And then if you decide not to buy it, you try to get tricky or something and say, you know what, I don't want to pay this realtor, then I'm going to go ahead and wait till our contract expires. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to wait till January 2nd. You wait till January 2nd, and he goes, hold on, we have the protection period here. We still have 30 more days, or how many days, so you still owe me this much money. Now, but keep in mind, the seller pays all the realtor's fees. So in general, 99.9%, it's always paid by the seller. So it's free to you anyways. But let's say that, for instance, there is no commissions on the seller. The seller says, I don't want to pay any commission to anybody, I'm giving this at rock bottom. Well, then you're expected to pay that commission because you have signed an agreement with the realtor. He works and he's gonna get this so much money. So you would add it on top of the property, and that's the way you usually work. So if it's 100,000, you would add 100. We would add 3,000, 3%. Make it 103 and hope that it appraises for that much. Escrow is basically money that would be put down on the property through a title company, usually 500 to 1% of the property value. What county it is, whatever county you're in. Mediation, basically saying, hey, if you get an argument with the seller, hey, the toilets are messed up or the walls are messed up here, and I didn't see that part, well, then y'all go to somebody called a mediator, work it out before you take it to court. Mediators are very expensive though, usually $1,000 to start and $40 an hour. And attorney fees, who pays the attorney fees, blah blah blah. Information about broker service, we already talked about that. This is all standard stuff. You would sign it, they put their name, you put the date, all that good stuff. Now when you sign all this stuff, you always make sure that you get an executed copy of the contract. Basically, it shows that you and them signed it. Everyone signed it. That's executed. So that when they send you an executed copy, that's when the contract is in full effect. So if you sign it and they haven't signed it and you haven't received a signed copy, it's not executed yet. You can still get out of the contract. Anywho, well, that's lesson 1 on reviewing standard forms at a real estate company. So we took a look at information about broker services, very standard, just telling you how they get paid and who represents who. And then we took a look at the listing, not listing agreement, the buyer's representation agreement, just saying, hey, how that the realtor's you and the realtor are tied together for a certain amount of time, And even after that time, they have the protection period. And 99% of the time, the seller will pay his fees, so don't worry about it. Just that 1% that you may have to pay, but that's very uncommon. So anyhow, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. And if you have any, check us out on the web at www.TexasRealtyPros.com. Thank you very much.